What's going on, everybody? It's Los here. We back on the throne of positivity, where the first is last and the last is first. If you're new to the channel, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and also leave a like and a comment so that we could get this ministry out to as many people as possible so they can receive the encouraging message of Christ. Shout out to everybody who has been supporting the ministry. I truly appreciate you. Thank you for making the sacrifice that you do. God will repay you for everything you have done. If you would like to support the ministry, consider clicking one of the links in the description below. Or you can do the greatest thing that you can do, which is pray for me and this ministry, that God will elevate himself and glorify himself. So thank you again. So today is currently May 21st. It's 10:21 in the morning. I have a message for you all in regard to sacrifice and suffering. And I really want to get deep on how worth it is going to be for you to go through this suffering. Your reward is on the way. All this pain, all this trial, all this tribulation, it has a purpose. And all that I could think about in regard to that is, let us not shrink back from the confession that we have made, because we know that he who promises is faithful. The reason why we don't shrink back is because we know that God is faithful. And all this pain, all this suffering, all this turmoil, all these trials, beloved, is going to be worth it. If you could see the magnitude of the blessing that God has given you, I think you would go through the pain willingly, right? It would help you go through the pain, through the hard ache, and do the hard work, the things that we don't want to do. And I think it's precious of God that he actually shows us the blessing, right? And it's for what reason? To entice us, right? Listen, the Bible at Hosea 2 says that God seduces or entices Israel to the wilderness to make her fall in love again. I do think it's appropriate to say that, seduce and entice. And the reason why that is because this is between a husband and a wife. And God is calling you to the wilderness, and it's not to destroy you, right? It's not. And I know you think it is because of all the attacks, all the pressure, all the things that's happening, all the time, all the waiting, all the hurt, all the sleepless nights. You think that God is trying to destroy you, but the truth is he wants to build you up. He wants to remove all the distractions from your life so that the only thing before you is the apple of your eye. That you can recognize that he is truly the blessing, right? And that you would fall in love again. And this past weekend, I tell you, I don't know how this works. All that I know is that my heart, it like recycles, it renews, and it falls not only deeper in love, but how is it that you can fall in love again and again and again? It almost seems like a romance story, right? Like, I'm a hopeless romantic, man. So well, two of my favorite movies is, well, three, I guess, is The Notebook, Titanic, and number one is really The Count of Monte Cristo. I love that story. I'm a hopeless romantic, right? So falling in love in this way again and again and again. I feel like I'm living this. Like, I feel like I'm living in a movie, you know? But if you think about a movie, if you watched a movie that had no drama, if there was no buildup, if there was no climax, there was no conflict or all these things, you would say that was a really boring movie and I don't want to watch this again. The reason why we enjoy movies is because, or any medium of entertainment, is there's some type of buildup. There's some type of hill to conquer, a mountain to climb up. There's some type of struggle and sacrifice that has to take place, no matter what it is, right? There's some type of trial and tribulation. And whether that conflict is resolved appropriately will determine if you like that movie or medium, whatever it is. So if you look at your own life in that way, don't you think that this is what God is doing? If we want God to write our story, right, whether our love story, our life story, or the story of our salvation, if we want him to write the lyrics of our song, then what are we expecting, right? Like, what are we expecting? I wouldn't want to read no story that's just like, oh, well, this person was born into a rich family. They went through no struggles. They got everything they wanted, and then boom, they lived the best life, happy ever after. Like, fairy tale story. Like, nobody wants to read that. That's not interesting. That's boring. So why would I want my story to be like that, right? You don't want your story to be like that. Let God create your testimony in the furnace of trial and tribulation, and the upon the anvil of affliction, and to be forged and reformed in the by the hammer of his justice and his righteousness, knowing that God is producing something in you that you will be so grateful for what you went through. And just like I was thinking this morning, again, it's crazy how God just confirms, man. It touched my heart in such a beautiful way. Because I was brushing my teeth, washing my face, and all of this. And I'm just thinking, like, Lord, I'm glad that I'm suffering. It's truly a privilege to suffer beside you, my God. I can't go through what you went through, Father. I can't do what you did, my Lord. And what are you asking me? Right? Like, what is God asking for us? Wait, be patient. Like, does it even matter? After this is done, all this pain, is it going to matter? In a way, yes, because nobody could take it away from you. It's going to make things even sweeter. But it won't matter in the grand scheme of things. And this present suffering is nothing compared to the glory that is to be revealed. So keep pushing, keep going. Let God work through you and understand that he's right by your side. He's with you. Like, think about that. You weren't with him. Think about this, right? Like, think about this, because as humans, we do the tit for tat. We keep score. And if even the most forgiving person, we just human. Even by natural tendency, we hold on. Like, even if we don't want to, our physiology is going to hold on to things. I'm so glad that God doesn't keep score, because he went through everything that he went through, was on the cross. We were the ones who hung him. We were the ones who nailed him. And I say we, because just as sin came through one man, Christ was crucified through one man. And what I mean by that is, there's this tendency to think that if I was in the garden, I wouldn't have bit of the apple. If I was at the cross, I wouldn't have doubted, or I wouldn't have that. Listen, Mary, Martha, John, Paul, Peter, all of us were equally guilty of nailing him on the cross. It don't matter how we were reacting at the point of it. He didn't keep score that nobody was there with him. Yes, his mother was at the cross. Yes, John was at the cross. All these people were at the cross. But who was really on the cross with him? It was only Jesus Christ crying out to the Father in heaven, Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. So we weren't there with him, yet in our slightest inconvenience, he's there with us. And if he's there with us, why won't we just go through it if he's the one encouraging us through it? We weren't there to encourage him on his trials and tribulations. Think about that. Like, think about that. He wasn't being encouraged by us. Who was there? Even Peter says, far be it from you to die, or whatever. I'll be there to the end of time, right? And we're talking about Peter, the most loyal one. How did that end up? And how did God respond to seeing Peter again when he was on the beach? He met him with fish, cooked him a meal. Like, this is the God we serve. And he's asking you to suffer. He's not asking you to suffer for the sake of your salvation. I mean, in a sense, yes, right? But salvation is at the end of life, right? When you take your final breath and close your eyes for the last time, that's where salvation is. But what he's asking you to suffer for, yeah, that's the goal. But from here to there, he has all these things planned out for you. But he's asking you, suffer with me so that we can have the intimacy needed, so that when we get to the point of salvation, you're not meeting a stranger at the great white throne. You're meeting your beloved, the one who guided you through your darkest times, your most troubling moments. That's the thing we got to think about. Our relationship here indicates some type of reality of the relationship we will have in the time to come. And I don't know about you, man, but I want to see my best friend there. When I jump into his arms, I want to jump with no fear. I mean, obviously, the first thing I'm going to do is bow down and listen, eat the dust of his feet, because he's worthy of it all. But when he allows me to, I'll get it up. And I don't know if I could bear hug him and pick him up, or maybe he gonna do it to me. I don't know. Like, the Bible says that the prodigal son was on the horizon and the father ran to the son. So it may not even be that he gives me a chance to hit the floor. It's him coming after us, right? So If that's the beauty of what we have to look forward to in the new life, why wouldn't I suffer? This suffering is worth it all. And you know what's one of the things that I don't want to say I fear, but I know that I'm going to miss these times of pain and suffering. I know it. Even now, as I'm in pain, is nothing compared to pain that I've been through before. And I look at those deeper times of pain, and I don't miss the pain, right? Like, I don't miss that. But what I miss is the intensity of God's presence in those moments. Or maybe not the intensity, because it's not any different from how He's with us now. But what I mean is the way you perceive His presence in that moment. It's like, yo, I'm going through the hardest pain of my life, and you're here with me. You're here with me. And I think that's something that's precious, man. And that's our blessing. Our inheritance is the suffering, right? To bear the scars of Christ on our body. For to live is Christ and to die is gain. I don't know, man. I think that we should suffer. I know it sounds weird, but when you think about the reward that Christ has for you, the crown of glory, the crown of life, the crown of salvation, His presence, the new life, the new creation, like there's not going to be no pain. There's not going to be no manipulation, no deceit, no deception, no sin, no harm, no sickness, nothing. And even still, He promises us life here in this life abundantly. So I think that we should appreciate what we go through and be grateful, because when I say that I'm going to miss these days, I know how much I'm going to love my wife and children. Like then we'll go through our own times, but these moments we will never get back. Like me and my wife, I mean, this is my reality. I know it's a reality for other people, or maybe not, I don't know. But my reality is, her and I get married. There's no going back to being single. I don't believe in divorce, right? So it's like we hit this until we die, but there's only one way out of it. It's to the grave. But, you know, her and I, we won't be single anymore, right? There's no more, I'm going to just do whatever I want. And, you know, and I'm not talking about in regard to life. I'm talking about in regard to God. Because right now, as a man, I could wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning and just wake up, and I don't got to worry about nobody here or like bothering anybody or impeding on somebody else's life, right? Or I could fast. I could say, look, I'm going to fast for the next week. I don't got to check in. What's the schedule? What's this? Let's just do it. Let's go. Let's get it. Like, we live in a beautiful life. That's why Paul says in 1 Corinthians chapter 7, I wish you would be like me, because if I wanted to go to Africa right now, Paul could do it. He gets up and goes, because the single man, the single woman are concerned only for the Lord and the things of the Lord. But when you marry, it's no longer like that. The order of importance is God, your spouse, and ministry, right? So, you know, God may ask a couple be missionaries, but you can't just pick up and go, right? Like, now there's a process. Now there's additional elements that come into play. And there's a lot of beautiful things that come from that. But again, now you got to take less risk. I can't just go and say, like, I'm going to give up my body to be burned. Like, you know, it's a different process. So there's things to look at in your single season that I think that we should appreciate. For the ones that are single, obviously, you know, for the ones who are married, you have such a beautiful, you literally have a representative of Christ as your person. Like, I don't know how else to describe what a spouse is other than that they are Christ for you in the flesh. Like, there's nothing closer to that, right? Like, there's nothing. And something that I always tell God is, like, I've mentioned this before. I always say, like, I can't wait to love your daughter, Father. I can't wait to love her, right? But something that I don't know if I've mentioned to you guys, something that I always tell the Lord in privacy is, I can't wait to love you through your daughter. And what I mean by that is, hopefully that explains what I'm saying, is that your spouse is Christ in the flesh. So you should appreciate them in that way. I'm not saying they're God. That's not what I'm saying. But if you understand the way of the workings of the church, God, his relation to his creation, that's what Christ is, right? Christ is how we experience God. He is God, but he's the light that is approachable to the unapproachable light, if you catch my drift. But I always tell God, I'm like, Father, I can't wait to love you through your daughter. And that's going to be a special season, something beautiful, and I'll get to experience that for the rest of my life. I'll get to experience that longer than I have been alive. Hopefully, you're like, Lord, any day now, any day you ought to come. I'm 31, you know, you know what I'm saying? Like, golly. But anyways, suffering is a privilege, and we should appreciate every season we find ourselves in, because the season will never be repeated. And although each season, when we don't get what we want as humans, right, as flesh and blood and bone, we tend to overemphasize the negative aspects, the darkness or the suffering and the pain, not recognizing that with every season, no matter how hard the season, there is light, there is goodness, there is grace, there is God. And that can't be overlooked. You need to find the diamonds in the rough, because it's there. And you will come to realize one day, when you get to the blessing, when I can love God through my wife, I'm going to look back and be like, wow, that was a blessing. Why? Because even if I can't even recognize the blessing back then, the only reason this is a blessing here is because of that. And if I didn't go through that, I wouldn't have this. So I don't know what you're going through, but just know that your reward is coming. I know we didn't touch on that a lot, but the purpose is not the reward is coming. The purpose is the suffering is a blessing, man. And I want you to enjoy it as much as you can, but practice gratefulness, practice mindfulness, practice seeking after the Lord and his goodness and his grace and seeing all the good things. Because like I mentioned on live yesterday, God, again, that old image, you know to say, is as old as the internet. You have a teddy bear, and God is asking you for the teddy bear, and he has a bigger teddy bear behind his back. You don't even recognize how this suffering season, you holding the little teddy bear, not knowing that the suffering is the big teddy bear. And he's going to switch it, right? And you'll have the beauty that is the appreciation of all these things that you will have. And the more grateful you could be, the more you could worship God through the storm, the better the blessing will be. Why? Because again, like I mentioned yesterday, when you trust God through the things that you can't understand and you thank him in advance, when you receive what he was telling you the whole time, just trust me, just trust me. When you receive the blessing, it's like, wow, Lord, thank you. And you guys are all hugging and you're appreciating, kissing and loving. And it's like, Lord, thank you. I'm so glad I trusted you. And now I can embrace my wife and my children. I'm like, I love you guys because I suffered for this and I was grateful through the pain, right? But if you're ungrateful, you're complaining at every single inconvenience, or you're becoming bitter, or you're losing yourself, or whatever it is, right? You're being ungrateful and unthankful throughout the whole time, and God is just like, yo, just trust me, I got you, I got something better out, or just wait. And he finally gives you the blessing. What are you gonna do? You have two options. You're gonna feel guilty and shame, or you're just gonna be like, I don't want that, like ungrateful kids are, you know what I mean? I don't want to be like that. It's like, man, I'd rather enjoy the blessing when it comes, not worrying about, man, I didn't get to trust you, I didn't trust you, I don't want to deal with that. No, I'd rather, okay, I don't understand. It hurts. It's painful. But what? I don't know, Lord. I don't know. But I'm going to trust you because I want to be grateful, man. Who doesn't love to be around somebody that's grateful, right? That's somebody that appreciates everything. It's like, wow, was it the Vine days? Guys, yeah, I remember Vine, man. Old school social media was just different. You remember when the kid gets an avocado? I don't remember if it's exactly that, but I don't know if I even ever watched it, but I remember it was a meme for the longest time. And the kid gets an avocado that was wrapped for Christmas. And he's like, oh, an avocado. And he was just, he's so grateful. And it's like, you that happy? It was just a joke. You that happy off of an avocado? You know what? I want to give you more. And this is what appreciation does. True and genuine, sincere appreciation. True, genuine, sincere appreciation draws out of the giver even more gifts. And I'm not saying that's why you're going to be appreciative, because you can't manipulate God. But if you're truly, genuinely grateful for what God is going to do for you, he's going to give you more than what you asked for. And I really recognize that this weekend, man. Like, Friday was a silent prayer of my heart, and I received even more than what I asked for. And it was like, whoa, okay. Like it was just nonstop and all the details on details on details from the Lord. It was like, okay, I see it. This is deep, and I appreciated that. So my heart is grateful, and I want to invite you to do that. Be grateful for the Lord. Every time you're fighting on your knees for your blessing, Ephesians 3:14, bring that to mind. This is the reason why I'm fighting. Remember why, and be grateful for it. Because again, if you can see the future, is going to make the present far greater. So anyways, let this suffering be a pleasure and a privilege, and just know that your reward is coming. God is not mocked. He's not going to let his name be smeared just because whatever situation. So you're not going to be the first person in history God is not going to complete his promises to. So be encouraged, beloved. Let the Lord show you what he has for you. So y'all know what it is. It's low here. We all to throw our positivity where nobody shall to throw us. We have praise. Doses.